On today's show, recapping a massive recruiting weekend in the SEC and one SEC school blazing hot on the recruiting trail. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, and get $20 off your first purchase. So welcome back, everybody, from the July 4th holiday weekend. It was a super busy recruiting weekend across the SEC. So figured, why not dive into it? Let's get you caught up on all the action that happened over the weekend. But we got to start with the one school that is absolutely blazing hot right now on the recruiting trail, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Kalen DeBoer over at Alabama, the Crimson Tide absolutely crushing it the past few days. And Alabama now with a top 5 class in both the 24/7 Sports Composite and on 3. And it started last week with the commitment from 5 stars in edge Xavier Griffin and wide receiver Sedarian Morgan. But then it continued over the holiday weekend. They got a pickup from 5-star safety out of the Maryland area, Jaira Edwards, the number 26 national recruit, the number 3 safety in the country. Edwards, his final schools came down to Georgia, A&M, Florida, Auburn, Oregon, and Bama, committed to the Crimson Tide on 24/7 Sports. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, out of the Maryland area. And like we said, the number 23 player overall in the country, the number 2 safety in the country. And with his commitment, that now gives Alabama, they've got the number 1 corner, the number 2 wide receiver, the number 2 safety, the number 2 edge prospect, and Alabama's 4 5-stars are the most in the country. Now, also on Friday, they added 4-star D lineman Nolan Wilson out of Picayune, Mississippi. He's a top 100 recruit, the number 15 D lineman in the country. And he drew a host of offers from Ole Miss, Florida, Miami, Auburn, and settled on the Crimson Tide. Nolan Wilson, 6'4", 250 pounds, 4-star D lineman. He's the number 58 overall player in the country and the number 6 defensive lineman in the country. That's according to one ranking. Again, it depends what ranking you're looking at. 24/7 Composite has him at the number 99 national player. But regardless, big class. And in addition, they added 3-star wide receiver Brian Williams out of Orlando. So that currently has Alabama with the number 5 overall recruiting class for 2026, 19 commitments so far. And you can see it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 top 100 players. Xavier Griffin, Sedarian Morgan, Jordan Edmonds is that 5-star corner. Jaira Edwards is the 5-star safety. And then they've got 2 4-star athletes, Zion Gibson and Max Sutter. All reports are Sutter will likely be a tight end. Then you have 4-star Xavier Crowell, and then the 4-star D lineman Nolan Wilson. So monster group for Kalen DeBoer, and just a chance to really build off of the Saban legacy. I understand it didn't get started off on the right foot on the field last year. You lost to Vanderbilt, which was a monumental, catastrophic loss, and then you lost to Oklahoma. Both teams finished 6-6, but you did beat the snot out of LSU and Baton Rouge. You beat Georgia, which was a monster win at home, continued that legacy of owning Georgia in recent years. So again, Kalen DeBoer, he's got to prove it on the field, but this is a monumental step because last year there was some rumblings on what are they doing recruiting, going and recruiting these kids from California and all this. Like they gotta hold steady in the South and get a lot of these kids. And of course, gotta finish with a top 10, possibly top 5 recruiting class. And that is where Alabama sits right now. We'll see where they finish. But again, great start to the 2026 recruiting class for Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. Quick note on Kalen DeBoer. I was watching Get Up on Friday, and Paul Finebaum was there, and they asked his thoughts on Kalen DeBoer in Alabama heading into year 2 in Tuscaloosa. And Finebaum said, look, everybody in the world knows what happened last year. They missed out because of a debacle at the end of the year. He's done an amazing job recruiting. fact, he's done it at a level that was very close to what Nick Saban did at times, but he doesn't make the playoffs. Or if he doesn't make the playoffs, the pressure will intensify. He won't be fired. He's still in rather good standing because of the recruiting, but he needs to make the playoff this year. So that's what's so funny. When people ask me about, the SEC and who's on the hot seat and who has the most pressure, I just say it like this. To me, Brian Kelly and Kalen DeBoer have to make the playoff this year. They just do. The expectations at LSU and Alabama, and by the way, they play each other in Tuscaloosa. So, somebody's going to take a loss from that game regardless. But to me, both Alabama, both LSU, 10-2 is absolutely what they have to do, and they have to make the playoff. Now, I've had some people say, will a 3-loss SEC team make the playoff? I don't know, because that all depends on the rest of the landscape. Again, do you have multiple 2-loss Big Ten teams? Does a 3-loss SEC team jump a 2-loss Big Ten team? I don't know. That's the whole landscape and how this thing's going to play out with the 12-team playoff in year 2 of it. But to me, again, Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer must make the playoff this year. If whoever misses it, the pressure is going to be insurmountable there on, direction of the program and everything else. All right, let's get to some other SEC recruiting commits from the weekend. Over at Texas A&M, they added a big-time linebacker to their class on Friday afternoon. 4-star linebacker Tank King. He had offers from Texas, Notre Dame, Michigan, and he is a Texas native, the number 29 linebacker, the number 56 player from the state of Texas, 6'1", 205 pounds, from the Port Arthur, Texas area. Took an official visit to College Station in June, and he commits to Elko and the Aggies. Now, the Aggies also got a commitment from Bryce Perry Wright, a big-time defensive line recruit out of the state of Georgia. He's 6'2", 250 pounds, from Buford High School, rated a 5-star recruit by 24/7 Sports, the number 38 overall recruit in the country, and the number 3 defensive lineman nationally. So that puts A&M now at 24 commits for this cycle, a group that ranks 3rd in the country. Perry Wright is the 7th top 100 prospect to commit to the Aggies. So look, we just finished gushing on Kalen DeBoer. We got to gush on the job that Mike Elko's doing. Remember, this is just year 2 in his time at College Station. But, of course, recruiting hasn't been a problem at A&M. I mean, Jimbo Fisher signed the number 1 class there a couple of years ago, we remember. But Aggies just behind USC and Georgia. They got a chance to still build on this. How about over at LSU? Brian Kelly, they added an offensive tackle to this class over the weekend in Laurel West Jones, Bryson Cooley out of the state of Mississippi. A 6'7", 315-pound tackle, had offers from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, and LSU cleaning up in the state of Mississippi so far. They've got the top-ranked recruit in the state, wide receiver Tristan Keys, a top 2 O-line, and now a couple of O-linemen from the Magnolia State. Cooley is a 4-star prospect in the composite, number 26 tackle in this class, number 13 prospect from the state, number 2 rated offensive lineman from the state of Mississippi. LSU also picked up 3-star safety Isaiah Washington over the weekend. He's the number 3 rated safety from the state of Louisiana. And that all comes on the heels of them adding the number 28 national recruit, number 4 edge, Trenton Henderson, last week. So LSU's class sitting at number 10 in the country. Brian Kelly and staff hoping to finish with a top 10 class. Over Georgia, they picked up a 4-star tight end named Braden Fogel over the weekend. Big pickup, number 163 overall player, the number 10 tight end in the country, out of Mansfield, Ohio, 6'3", 230 pounds. So Georgia up to 27 commits for the class of 2026, sitting number 2 overall. How about Steve Sarkisian over at Texas? Friday, they picked up a commitment from in-state lineman John Turntine. He had offers from A&M, Michigan, Stanford. 6'3", 285 pounds, 4-star recruit, number 3 interior offensive lineman in the nation, the 36th overall player in the country, and a number 3 player from the state of Texas. So a big pickup there. That comes on the heels of them picking up linebacker Kosi Akpala on Thursday. Over Tennessee, they stay hot on the recruiting trail. They got a commitment from defensive lineman Darrell Rivers, 6'5", and chose Josh Heupel's bunch over the likes of Georgia Tech, Mississippi State, Auburn, Georgia, and said that Tennessee has been his dream school since he first started playing football. He's a 3-star recruit in the 24/7 composite, number 70 prospect from the state of Georgia. So we'll see what happens with him, but that gives Tennessee 17 commitments for their class. Over at Mizzou, they picked up a July 4th commitment from Tony Forney, a defensive back out of Georgia, Marietta, Georgia. And how about Auburn? They got somebody. They picked up Atlanta tight end Kentrell White, 6'4", 210 pounds, chose Auburn over Virginia Tech. He said it's Auburn because if I want to go big, I need to play at a big school where I can make big plays. And that is at Auburn. So that is those are the latest commits from the holiday weekend. And as it shapes up, as of this recording, how it shakes up is Georgia sitting at number 2 overall, Texas A&M number 3 class, Alabama number 5, LSU number 10, Texas 12, Tennessee 15, Florida 16. So that's 7 schools in the top 16. And then Arkansas is at 24th, Mississippi State 31, Ole Miss 37, Oklahoma 42, Vanderbilt 48, and then outside the top 50, Kentucky 52, South Carolina still sitting at 55th overall, Mizzou at 74th, and Auburn at 86th overall with 7 commits. Just a few other ones to add. Vanderbilt added a 3-star O-lineman Trip Skews. Mizzou added 3-star O-lineman Braylon Ellison. Arkansas added a 3-star wide receiver Keemian Henderson. And Mississippi State added 3-star safety Tamario Johnson. So there is the latest that happened over the weekend in recruiting. And again, the big news was Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Look, we know Georgia is doing great. That was as expected. Figured Steve Sarkisian in Texas and LSU and Brian Kelly, they're always there. Mike Elko doing a great job at A&M. So really, if you're going like the 2 big headlines, it's, hey, Kalen DeBoer is doing great recruiting at Alabama, and Mike Elko is doing great recruiting at A&M. 2 guys, heading into year 2 in coaching in the SEC. And obviously a big part of this is revenue share and getting guys set up with NIL deals and all that kind of stuff. There's no mistaking here. You're paying players. When we come back, we're going to talk about a very unique situation at Texas Tech, an announcement that came out. That's coming your way here in just a second. Hey, but first, I want to ask you guys, have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where the Game Time app comes in. It's the easiest way for you to grab last minute tickets without all the stress. With the money you save on tickets, use that money to splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time is going to make all of that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the Game Time app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guaranteed that's going to take the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, of course, making it easy for you to browse the app for an exciting Major League Baseball game. Or, hey, look, if you want to get started early on some of the upcoming college games, you can do that as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Is last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, roll along here. Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And the whole weekend was dominated by recruiting, if you were paying attention to it like I was. If not, hopefully we got you all caught up. But one of the storylines, if you missed this, and we are Locked On SEC, we rarely talk outside of the SEC, but I wanted to bring this up because this was pretty big. Texas Tech picked up a big-time 5-star offensive lineman, Felix Ojo. Now, there had been a lot of talk that maybe he was going to end up at the University of Texas. Steve Sarkisian was hot on the trail. And he ends up announcing over the weekend that he's going to Texas Tech. But the interesting part about this is they announced a financial deal here. Most of these kids just announced, I've decided to go play at Alabama or decided to go to A&M. This kid's deal was announced with financials. According to a report from Hayes Fawcett, Texas Tech earned Ojo's commitment by agreeing to pay him more than $5 million over the course of a 3-year deal. Fawcett cites a report from Ojo's agent in the report. But again, this is from Derek Shelby of Prestige Management. It was announced 5-star offensive tackle Felix Ojo will join Texas Tech on a fully guaranteed 3-year, $5.1 million deal. Of course, with the House settlement getting official approval last month, college football programs are now able to pay players directly. But this is a massive addition for Texas Tech, and a missed opportunity for the Longhorns. He's the number 7 overall player, the number 2 offensive tackle in the country, and 6'6", 275 pounds. But Texas Tech has really upped their spending significantly when it comes to the transfer portal, when it comes to recruiting. Of course, they made a lot of headlines with their pitcher in softball that they, got them to the national championship, that they paid her $1 million. And again, they had the number 2 ranked transfer recruiting class in the cycle, transfer portal class, I should say. And, people are thinking that Texas Tech can win the Big 12 this year. But again, this kid won't play this year. But I just bring it up because it's the first case that we've seen financials behind this deal. And so many questions come in on, well, like, what's the deal? Like, is there something in there that he has to remain eligible, right? Like, he's still got to go to class. Or is it, the chicken or the egg? Like, because he's got this financial deal to play football with them, basically be a professional football player, is the school just going to go ahead and take care of his transcripts? Like, oh, okay, we'll give you online classes. We'll get you a tutor. We'll do everything to just make sure you skate by grades wise. And, we don't have to worry about the whole NCAA and, whatever that is, whatever you have to do to remain eligible. We'll make sure we skate by those requirements. I just found that very, very interesting. And again, it's a $5.1 million deal. So you got to assume paid out over the course of, in a 3-year deal. So it's paid out over the course of 3 years. But again, is this all from the revenue share? Is this built in with an NIL deal? I don't know. I didn't read all the specifics into it. I'm sure we'll find out in time, but just fascinating that, because people's comments on the tweet were like, what is this, the NFL? And it's what it's becoming, right? I mean, it's, hey, you got this recruit. It's just like you signed a guy in free agency. Hey, great. Signed to a 5-year or a 3-year, $5 million deal. And you got him. You got your recruit. But again, what's to say in the clauses and everything in the verbiage on what does he have to do to live up to that contract and earn that money? What if he's not starting? What if he's not good enough? What if other guys are better than him? It turns out to be, what happens in the NFL all the time. You sign a bust to a free agent. That could certainly be the story here with Felix Ojo. But again, we'll see if this happens in the SEC. I'll be curious in the coming weeks to months if schools will publicly announce in a press release, hey, we signed this recruit for 3 years, whatever, $5 million. And again, it is a new age of college football. All right, real quick, this break, I did want to mention Pro Football Focus. They unveiled their list of top 10 players in college football in 2025 on Friday. And those are top 50, but I was just going to run through the top 10 here, and a couple of guys making this list. Jeremiah Smith, the Ohio State wide receiver, came in at number 1. Caleb Downs, the former Alabama defensive back, been at Ohio State, won a national championship with them. He comes in at number 2. Peter Woods, Clemson defensive lineman, comes in at number 3. He will play LSU in week 1. Of course, will play South Carolina at the end of the year. Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back, comes in at number 4. Spencer Fano, the offensive lineman at Utah, comes on this list. Leonard Moore, Notre Dame defensive back. Cade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback, again, going to play LSU in week 1. How about over at Texas? Our first glimpse of an SEC player on this list over at Texas. Colin Simmons, the Texas edge, comes in on this list. Also over at South Carolina, we've got Dylan Stewart, the big edge from South Carolina, making this list. And then TJ Parker from Clemson making the top 10. So Clemson led all schools with 3 players in the top 25. Alabama, of course, had 1 player, Ryan Williams, listed in the top 15. So Ryan Williams coming in at number 12 on the Pro Football Focus list of college football player rankings heading into this season. And again, we'll see if some other guys establish themselves and build up and climb up this list. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU jumps out, Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, of course, all the quarterbacks in the SEC will have a chance to prove themselves and move up this list. But I don't know, I was just pretty shocked that, for the SEC being such a star-driven league, that Pro Football Focus, again, they're basing this off of advanced metrics and, is this the best offensive lineman? Is this the best whatever? But it was just kind of surprising that, that many guys from Clemson making so high on this list. And Not a ton of SEC guys, but again, I think that'll play out as the season goes along. All right, more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC, part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And before we get out of here, did want to run through a couple stories that I saw making their way across the SEC. How about over at LSU? They held their team media day over the weekend. This is, their team photo shoot and that sort of thing. And during the team photo shoot portion of their day, LSU wide receivers posed for pictures alongside artwork honoring the deceased wide receiver Kyron Lacey, former Tiger standout who passed away in April. In one photo on social media, quarterback Garrett Nussmeier appeared alongside Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton, Kyle Parker, and tight end Trey'Dez Green. Anderson also posted separately photos of him with a portrait of Kyron Lacey. Lacey, of course, played in 12 games for LSU last year, was second on the team in receptions and receiving yards, declared for the NFL draft in December, but a fatal car accident involving Lacey was threatening his dream. He was charged with negligent homicide and a felony hit and run in connection with the crash. He was said to be speeding and passing in a no passing zone when another motorist swerved to avoid his vehicle and crashed head on with another. One man died. And according to authorities, Lacey fled the scene of the accident. He turned himself into police in January, was released shortly after on bond. In April, days before he was due in court, he went through LSU's pro day there at Baton Rouge, ran well, looked impressive and all that. And then, like I said, in April, right before he was about to go to court for a grand jury hearing related to that December crash, he passed away in what authorities ruled a suicide. So just an awful, awful story. And, they had a celebration of life for him in Louisiana, but obviously still very much on players' minds and his teammates. And so them doing their best to honor him, including him in their pictures with their team photos there at LSU's media day. All right. In a not so serious story, how about over at Florida? Their stud incoming freshman wide receiver, Dallas Wilson. He is expected to be a big time breakout player there in Gainesville this year. Well, the new college football 26 video game for EA Sports is set to come out, and the player model that EA Sports used for Dallas Wilson looks like a completely different person. So much so that Dallas Wilson went to social media and posted a picture pleading with EA Sports to please change the player likeness in the game. And for those of you watching on YouTube on our video version, you can see the photo looks absolutely nothing like Dallas Wilson. He posted on his Instagram account that people are coming up to him at practice and jokingly calling him different names. Someone at EA may want to consider making a tweak there and helping out Dallas Wilson because, man, it looks nothing like him, number 6 there at Florida. But, man, he was a big-time playmaker in their orange and blue spring game. Had 10 catches for a spring game record, 195 receiving yards and a couple of touchdowns. So a lot of folks excited to see what he can do out there on the football field with DJ Lagway throwing him the football this coming fall. But Dallas Wilson, a name to keep an eye on, but certainly in the video game EA Sports, they did not get the likeness right there. And one more tidbit before we get out of here, a coaching change over at Missouri. Their assistant wide receivers coach, Kean Williams, is leaving for a full-time staff job at Sam Houston State. He's been with Mizzou since 2023, announced on a social media page that he was accepting a job on Phil Longo's staff with the Bearcats. Thanked Mizzou head coach Eli Drinkwitz, said he would be forever grateful for his time with the Tigers. And he was assisted wideouts and recruiting coordinator Jacob Peeler. And less than a month ago before fall camp, Drinkwitz will look to bring in a new offensive assistant to help coach up their wide receivers. But of course, they've had some great success there with wide receivers the last couple of years there at Mizzou. And Williams, by the way, joined Mizzou staff in the summer of 2023. Spent 2 seasons prior with Missouri Southern. Before that, he was a grad assistant at Tulane, wide receivers coach for Wayne State in Nebraska. And his father, Keith, one of the more highly regarded wide receiver coaches in the country. So there you have it. There's the latest going on around the conference. want to thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And hey, just to give you guys a little heads up on what's happening here. So this week, we'll with SEC Media Days happening next week, I figured we'd look back on some of our interviews with some of the guys that are coming back, playing another year in the SEC. So later this week, you'll hear interviews of Garrett Nussmeier, Hal Perkins. These are our interviews we had with them at Media Days last year. Just kind of a look back and kind of seeing what they said a year ago this time. Because starting next week, we will be coming to you from SEC Media Days, bringing you some interviews with players and media dignitaries and the like. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And also, we had a visit with Tom Hart a couple years ago that we played a game with him, naming, giving you some SEC alums and naming the SEC school. And we had released it in podcast form. We never released the video version of it. So we'll release that this week, so you guys can get an eye on that. And again, get you guys set for the primer for next week. We should have the list announced this week for the Media Day attendees on who's going to be going from what school next week. And we'll be broadcasting there for you all week here on Locked On SEC from Atlanta for the SEC Media Days. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith, he's got all the latest rumors, news, recruiting, signings, all of that. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes with the college football landscape. You can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And make sure you're following us. You got Locked On SEC on YouTube. Subscribe there. We're getting so close to 10,000 subscribers. We're trying to break that before the start of football season. We've got our Instagram page, which is up there and kind of building. We started that not too long ago. And, of course, our Twitter page at Locked On SEC. So follow us on all the socials. Subscribe on whatever podcast form you listen to, whether it's Apple, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, whatever. And then, of course, the YouTube version. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.